What's going on, Junkie Nation? Gorgeous George and Goes are back, and we always spread our wings. If it's combat sports, we're in. Today, we get to talk to Karate Combat President Asim Zaidi, who's got an event to talk to us about. Plus, hey, let's talk about the promotion in general. We hear about it all the time. Karate Combat is blowing up. They had about a dozen shows this year. We'd like to know what's up for next year, and we'll dial in on this specific event happening December 19th in Miami, Florida. Some very familiar names from our world. Cosmo Alexander is in the co-main event, and in the main event, we have a vacant bantamweight title up for grabs. Arturo Vergara against Yogan Chomaya. God, I hope I got that right. How are you, Awesome? Good to see you, man.
I'm doing very well, man. It's an absolute honor to be on MMA Junkie. I'm a huge fan for decades now, right? So I'm very happy to be on.
Thank you, man. Hey, you were telling us something interesting. We'll start off with that. Your plans got changed, tossed around here at the last moment. You're prepping for a trip to Saudi Arabia. Good things are happening to the promotions that are going out to Saudi Arabia. What's going on with you?
Definitely, right? If you want to make it big, you got to go to Saudi Arabia. That's what it seems like right now. So I got news last night. They're like, hey, pack your bags. You got to be out. So in a few hours, I'll head out, fly over there with my wife, and hopefully lock some deals that will definitely shake up the combat sports world.
Nice. Okay. So is this like on the investment side? Because that's what they've been doing a little bit, or do they want to host events?
So I guess it's on both, but it's more about we are in the talks of having a sort of legacy tournament. We want to have some of the greatest strikers on the planet, some legends, do a week of fighting, so have a 3-day event where they're fighting twice a day on each event, have the finals at the end, and have a major grand prize. So there's a lot to it on this. It's sort of like a blood sport vibe type of event we're talking about. And there's no better partners than out there in the GCC. So we'll check out Saudi and see what we could do.
Have they told you already, or maybe have you heard it enough? What do you think? What might have been the draw that they want to do business with you and talk to you? Because it is awesome to watch. Like you said, blood sport. You do turn it on and think, "Am I watching the movies or what?" This is intense. It grabs you right off the bat when you start watching Karate Combat.
That's what it looks like that area when it comes to Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Saudi, all these different places, and we've been to all of them, right? When it comes to these places, they love that uniqueness and something special, something different. And I think that's what Karate Combat is. It's very different, where the rule set is a much more evolved version of what kickboxing used to be, with the ground and pound and the elbows and the takedown. It's really evolved sport. And then on top of that, it being in a pit, it's sort of movie-like, right? And then you have that virtual background. It's so different that, a lot of people are really in love with it. And especially in that area, they want us to head over there.
I love it. All right. Well, Goes is my brother, and he actually went to one of your events when I was out of the country, and he has talked about it to great lengths, and he really, really enjoyed it. So let me let him chime in on this because he had a blast when you guys were here in Vegas.
Yeah, no, it was really, really fun and just different. It's if you're a fan of combat sports, I think you just gravitate to it, and it was kind of fun to see the people from our world and MMA around, and you could just kind of see the looks on their faces, like I want to give this a try. They all kind of had that little look, like I think I could do this. I think I could take them. So it was just a fun night in general. But one thing I wanted to ask you was, we look at all these organizations that are out in combat sports right now, and it took them a while to kind of get their footing as far as rule sets and how they wanted things to production, all that stuff. You're newer on the scene. Where would you say percentage wise you're at where from your final product, what you envisioned? Are you pretty close? Are you pretty happy with the way things are now? Or do you feel like things may still be evolving and changing a little bit?
Well, this will shock you, actually. Most people just heard of Karate Combat this year, when I started back in December. But actually, Karate Combat's been around for 5 years. So they've been around for some time, and they've gone through a couple different presidents. They had 2 different ones. When the last administration left, I joined in December. I had to really make a lot of changes and sort of make adjustments on the rule set, like you're saying, on production, on a lot of different things, on the roster especially. I had to evolve the roster. There's a lot of things I had to do. I would say in a year's worth of time of work, I feel we've done a good job of solidifying, what the vision is. In the beginning, when I first started, I do not believe the fight roster was world class. I think they were talented dudes, but I don't think they were world class. They were from one demographic. They were all karate background guys. We're trying to push karate combat as the greatest striking league in the world. And because of that, we opened it up and we invite all styles to compete under this rule set. Because of that, we did a whole world tour. I mean, we went to Dubai, we went to Thailand, we went to Singapore, across the US. I mean, we've been everywhere to search for the greatest talent. And over this course of this world tour, we've signed some of the greatest strikers on the planet. So right now, I truly believe that Karate Combat has one of the greatest rosters for striking in the world today. And then the rule set and all that other stuff, there's been evolutions. The rule set, before I joined, there were no kicks to the thigh. It was kind of absurd, There are no kicks to the thigh, no elbows, a lot of very strange point fighting rules, because back then the people that were involved were big point fighters. We changed that completely. We modified it. We've evolved it. And now the rule set is something I really, really love. And I think everybody loves. I think the fans really love it. So now I think we are where we need to be. And we can continue in this direction going to 2025.
Is there a territory that you went to that kind of surprised you the most over other ones that, you weren't expecting that many fans or just fighters from that region? Was there one that stood out for you?
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a good question, actually. So there's so much that stands out to me from everywhere, and every culture is so different. I have to say, when we went to Mexico, the funnest, they were so excited about combat sports. It was crazy. The Mexican fans, they just get so excited. And their chants. So we have extra rounds. We have sudden death rounds. So in karate combat, there are no split decisions. There are no draws. If there's a split decision, it goes to a sudden death round. Now, the judges are influenced by the crowd. The whole crowd was screaming, chanting, extra round, one more round, one more round. They're screaming. Some of them eventually they go, uno mas, uno mas. They wanted more. And it was so crazy and so powerful that a lot of times the judges would just give extra rounds. It was kind of like they're being swayed by the audience. That's how passionate the Mexican fans were. So it was really fun being over there.
One thing that I realized when I was at the live event is, for as much fun as I'm having watching everything play out, I'm looking directly across from me and I see GSP and I see Boss Rude, and I'm thinking, man, these guys have put some time in martial arts. A lot of people know GSP as the guy that would take you down and ground and pound, but he comes from a karate background. And all I could think of was, what are they talking about? This is probably going to be really, really good. So I went back and I listened to the commentary, and they play so well off of each other. And it just seems like GSP is constantly getting asked, when are you going to do this? Get in the ring with me. I think that night he got called out by Pettis. How often do you hear that from people about GSP? And how many times have you had that conversation about him with him? How'd you like to just step in here and do something?
So what's really cool, and I think you guys will really appreciate this. So I've known George for, I don't know, like 15 years, because I was a student at TriStar. So I trained with Faraz Zahabi, which is GSP's coach, and I lived at the TriStar dorms when I was around 20 years old. And I was there for some time, and sort of George was like my role model, my idol. Like that's the guy that I looked up to the most, and he honestly dictated my martial arts journey the most. So he even teaches classes at TriStar. I'm not sure if everybody knows that, but he teaches classes there. So I used to do his classes, and it's so cool that it's just gone full circle, and now we're working together here in Karate Combat. So it's all just come back. As far as competing, I get asked all the time. Everybody's asking me, will George fight? Will George fight? And I shut it down right away. It's not a thing. He's moved on to the next part of his life, and he's very happy. I think people are still curious because he's just shredded, right? He's just super shredded, in shape. When he demonstrates techniques, he just looks so fluid that people want to see him back in there. But he's happy where he's at. He's a great analyst, and I think that's where he's at.
You mentioned some legends possibly fighting, and I was going to ask you, who would be kind of like your dream matchup, present day, back in the past, if you want to mix and match. It's just such a fun sport. Who would you have liked to see mix it up in Karate Combat?
Oh man, that's such a great question. And what stinks? It's very ironic that you're saying this, because George is like my favorite fighter of all time, you know? So it would definitely have to be GSP versus somebody else. Man, GSP and Anderson Silva. Do you remember back in the day, there was talks of them doing a catchweight fight? I don't know if you guys
Yeah.
remember that.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That, can you imagine? That would have been the most epic thing ever. Because at the time, they were both just unstoppable. They were killing it. And there was that talk of that catchweight fight. That would be something really amazing to see. GSP versus Anderson Silva. But it's never going to happen, you know?
Yeah.
What about Las Vegas? When are you coming back so I can catch some of this in person?
We'll make it happen. We have it on the schedule. We're talking to actually the Apex to do an event over
nice.
there. You know? Yeah, exactly. It'll be a really cool event at the Apex. They're remodeling the Apex right now and expanding it for the seating. I'm not sure if you guys know about that, but during the remodel, we're waiting for them to be finished. I believe they're finished around June, something like that. So then we can talk about going to Vegas in the middle of the year.
You know, now that I think about it, what was that spot that they built at the Rio that actually looked at it would be a nice home for karate combat? It brings out that blood sport appeal, but did they knock it down and all that? Do you remember?
The structure's still there, but I don't know what they've done inside.
What was it called though? The fight what?
The Fight Dome.
The Fight Dome. Yeah. Did you ever hear about that, Asim?
I never heard of that.
At the Rio?
I never heard of that. That's cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. We were like, oh boy, another MMA player, a boxer. What are they going to do? And especially here in Vegas. But they built this actual fight dome, and when we went in there, I remember going, "Whoa, this is really, really cool!" And then it popped on TV, on the internet as well, just like your show does. Where you're like, "Man, where's this? Is this a secret location? How come I didn't get invited?" You know what I mean? That's this appeal that it draws to you right away.
Definitely, and that's ironic you're saying that because we have our event next week, and it's in a private jet hangar of a very important celebrity that we're not going to mention yet, but the location is undisclosed. We're not giving it out quite yet, and it makes it's a little tough logistically, right, to get everyone to a secret location. But basically, it's been like that many times.
And why that versus selling tickets to the public?
I think it depends on the type of event. When we went to Dubai, we went to a tennis stadium. So it was like a 5,000 person stadium. I think we got like 4,600 people there, something like that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So some events, we're looking for stuff like that. Some events we're looking for something very exclusive and can bring in, like high end, influencers and celebrities and stuff like that. Do something special for that sort of crowd. So I think there's pros and cons to both.
Mm-hmm. Cosmo Alexander, he's on this card, right?
He's on this card. This card is absolutely stacked, I gotta say. So yes, we have a title fight at the main event. Arturo Vergara taking on Owen Chaumier. That's a great striking fight. But for the names with the vets that you guys might know, Cosmo Alexander, obviously Muay Thai legend, is taking on one of our biggest fighters in the Karate Combat roster. I believe he's number 1 ranked, Igor Casiana. And this guy's from Spain. It's that classic karate versus Muay Thai matchup. I think it's a phenomenal co-main event. People are really going to love it. Then you got Robelis, de Spain, 6'7", right?
Okay.
6'7", Olympic medalist. Every win he's ever had has been under 18 seconds by knockout. The guy's a monster, right? He's fighting a 6'11" kickboxing champion. So he's fighting a bigger guy. You know what I mean? So it's like, and my goal was, I told my matchmaker this. I'm like, look, we got Robelis. Everyone's expecting the 6'7" guy's going to tower everyone. Find a kickboxing champion bigger than him. So that's what we did. We found somebody bigger than him. We're finding the smallest ref humanly possible to ref it because it'll be hilarious. and then it should make for an unbelievable fight. Then we got Rafael Alves. And if you guys don't remember Rafael Alves did that crazy switch kick knockout on James Vick that was just talked about everywhere. And it was really terrifying. I mean, James Vick was in a coma for 3 days. I mean, it was insane. It was terrifying, I remember I stayed there the week after the fight to make sure he was healthy and okay. So very scary. Nobody wants to fight Rafael Alves. It was very hard to find him an opponent. To be honest, no one on the roster wants to fight him. I had to go outside of the roster and find somebody willing to fight him. So we have him fighting as well. Glory kickboxing champion is fighting. Bellator kickboxing champion is fighting. So it's just a card stacked with huge names, high level fights that I think everyone's gonna love.
Yeah, and for some of our MMA fans that want to connect the dots, obviously the Spain did fight in the UFC recently. He's the guy that's got the 85-inch reach, 1 inch longer than John Jones, who's basically had the longest reach in MMA for about a dozen years. And then Cosmo Alexander, he's the guy that broke the face of Sage Northcutt at one championship. And that's why Sage took about 4 years to come back to mixed martial arts. I'm not even sure if he's done or what. Hey, speaking of Sage, is he on your radar? He's a kind of a karate guy, and he's got that look, right? I didn't think about that.
It's crazy because you guys say some things and ask, and there's like 5 different topics we could talk about on each of those things. So you mentioned one championship, you mentioned Sage, you mentioned why he hasn't fought in a long time. There's a lot about the story, and you mentioned possibly signing him. So there's a lot there. Sage, yes, he broke his face with Cosmo Alexander. I don't remember exactly what fractures it was, jaw or orbital. I don't really remember.
Yeah, like on the cheek or something like that.
Yeah, it was really devastating. But that took him out for a year. The remainder of 3 years is just, I mean, it seems like that's just one championship not giving fighters fights, which is the common narrative that we're hearing right now, right? A lot of the fighters are complaining about not being active. And then there was that whole thing. Remember, Sage had a fight over at one championship, and then they didn't allow the corner man, or there's something like that.
That's right.
Yeah, there's this whole thing. So I am talking to Sage's team, his father, his manager, on how we can work together. Hopefully something happens there. And if not, no worries. He's out of his contract with one championship now. Thankfully, he got saved. But I mean, we have war on one, and that's been going everywhere. We've been talking about it. And basically, I have all these one champion fighters, current fighters and former fighters, current champions too, that feed me information and ask me to sort of be their voice since they can't speak out because of their contract. So I put things out all the time on this war on one. And that's the reason we were in Thailand last month, right?
Mm-hmm. Got it. All right. Now, awesome. Quick question for you. What I like about your website is it's very informative, but what I wanted to make sure of going into 2025 and for this show as well, KC51 coming up here on December 19th, what's your preferred broadcast partner where you want people watching? I know there's been YouTube, Fight Pass, but and CBS as well, but where do you like to point people to?
So the big thing with Karate Combat is we try to be everywhere. We're free content everywhere for anybody to watch, but we're really big on Twitter. Twitter and Facebook just gets insane views. Like I'm talking about, I think our average Twitter stream gets probably like 20 million views. And then same thing with the Facebook, it matches that. I mean, when you talk about combined viewership of our live event, you're talking about 40 million views each event across platforms. It's pretty insane. And then if you talk about socials, it's like 100 million views in a week on Fight Week. So it's just insane numbers because it's free content, and we're really focused on Gen Z. I mean, we have a much younger audience than most pay-per-view events, so it's pretty cool. I think people connect with us there. But my personal favorite, I love watching Karate Combat on Twitter, on X. That's where it's at. Crypto lives on Twitter. So that's where a lot of the hardcore fans are, because they're playing that up-only gaming. They're putting their tokens on the line on each of these fights. There's ways you can vote on your fighter and win money. It's pretty crazy. So, I watch on X mostly.
So at Karate Combat, that's where you want people to catch
the
event.
Yes,
okay.
That's one of the best places for sure.
All right. And goes you
there too.
What was the last one? Sorry.
What was that?
YouTube.
YouTube, got it. Okay, got it. All right, and go ahead, Goes. Finish up.
I was just gonna say, if we're looking for the world's smallest ref, this guy's got to be in the talks, right? Like, it's iconic. You gotta have him in there. I actually saw Sage. I actually saw Sage Northcutt and his sister at your event, and yeah, he was foaming at the mouth, man. He was like, I could totally do this. I could see. And everybody kept asking him the same question: when are you going to get in there? When are you going to get in there? So there were a lot of fighters that were getting asked, when are you going to get in there? And they all,
definitely. We have interest everywhere. I don't think there's a fighter that would say, I don't want to fight Karate Combat. Not anymore. Like in the beginning when I first started, it was kind of tough. I had to really convince people and reach out and ask this manager and that manager and find friends, mutual friends. Now it's not like that. Now it's everyone wants to fight Karate Combat. It's very easy. People are messaging all the time, our matchmakers, myself. I mean, if I ask, hey, would you like to fight Karate Combat? I doubt anybody would really say no. And honestly, the rule set is just, it's the perfect rule set for striking. You know, it's so realistic in that. I think the big argument here is when you watch boxing or kickboxing, you see these big gloves. It's very unrealistic. And a lot of times those guys don't translate to MMA and they get caught when they start fighting with the small gloves. It's just a different game. Guys that are used to fighting with big gloves, they're not performing as well with the small gloves. And the second huge variable is that 8 count. A guy drops, they get counts to recover, they stand up, and they have the ability to possibly come back and win the fight. When in reality, if you get dropped, the guy can go and finish you, and most probably he's going to be able to finish you. So although, you know, we love that Rocky movie where, you know, this guy drops and comes back and wins, in a real fight, that's not so much the case. So that's where Karate Combat comes in. I just feel it's the most realistic striking league in the world. You know, you get dropped, you better work your way up, defend yourself, and work your way and survive the finish. You know, you got the small gloves, you got all the striking ability from all 8 limbs, punches, elbows, knees, kicks. You got it all. You can strike in every position, clinch, ground, anywhere. And that's why it's the most complete striking league on the planet.
Have you tried to get Matt Brown out of retirement by any chance?
It was suggested, actually. That's funny because I met him a couple times. A really, really great guy. It was suggested, but when fighters retire, I like to leave them, you know, happy where they're at. I don't like to re-spark the fire unless they start that conversation first. That's like a big thing that I have. You know, I don't want to push someone to fight for any other reason besides they want it. You know, I don't want to be like, oh, I want to make money quick, and they go and make money and they weren't in it, you know.
When we spoke to him after he retired, we asked him, like, are you sure? Could you come back? Could you do this? Could you do that? But I remember he said, there is one thing that draws me, and it's the 8 limbs that you just described. It goes Muay Thai. So at least now I see that maybe you're not going to get hung up on. You're going to go, hello, you know, like, go ahead. You know, it sounds like I think there would be, I don't know, because he's going into real estate and things like that, and the conversation was probably about 6 months to a year ago, but he did say that Muay Thai was the one thing that fascinated him, and that's the one thing that kind of would get his dick hard. Like, I think those were his exact words.
Sounds like him. But talking about Muay Thai, you know, we did this event in Thailand, and there was a lot of motivation for it. You know, a lot of it was to give opportunities to, you know, the Asian fighters and the Thai fighters in that region, you know, because we feel like one championship is suppressing them and keeping them down. So it was a way to provide competitiveness to one championship and provide more opportunities for fighters. So that was the spark of it. And when we got there, we had athletes like Buaka, some of the biggest names in the Muay Thai world. The president of the Muay Thai Federation was there. You know, he actually gave me, his blessing to bring Karate Combat to Thailand. And they really felt like, hey, this might be the future. Like all these Muay Thai fighters that are coming up, Karate Combat might be the place for them to have to go to, which is really cool to see. Originally, they were very nervous about the ground and pound. They didn't know how that was going to translate. But once they stepped into the pit and they got a feel for it, they're like, wait a minute, I can do this, you know? And I don't know if you guys saw that Thai card. If you get a chance, you got to watch it. It's absurdly violent. And it was just a great show of world-class technique.
And the last question, because I know you got a busy day ahead of you, has Cobra Kai in any way helped out your popularity? Any synergy between that show that's now about 5 or 6 years old and your guys' promotion? Only because as you've been talking, have you watched that show, by the way?
Of course.
So
Yeah.
Isn't there a little Sakai Takai, like in, I don't know, just some of the stuff that you described and what I've seen? So can you talk about that show?
So Cobra Kai is such a good comparison. I think, I guess we're the reality version of it, right? Because originally, I think before I came into the picture, Karate Combat was maybe a little more Miyagi-Do. Like it was a little calmer. Right. And I don't think too many people really, I'm not sure if you guys were watching before I was involved or you just started watching now, but it wasn't really mainstream, right? It was for a very certain group of people. Now it's just open up mainstream for the public. Like the top fighters on the planet want to come compete for us. And now people are actually watching like high level fights, you know? But at the same time, I think naturally the attitude I bring in is very Cobra Kai-ish. You know, it's just that's the way my gym is. I have an MMA team over here with like 27 rostered fighters, many in the UFC, and we have that Cobra Kai vibe. And although I try to be more political as Karate Combat president, naturally that leaks into it. And definitely Karate Combat has a bit of a Cobra Kai vibe since I started.
Are you more of a Terry Silver, John Kreese, or Daniel LaRusso?
Oh man, I would say, oh man, John Kreese is pretty badass. He's a badass guy with that cigar in his mouth, out the way he is. I love all the wrinkles on his face. Like I kind of want to look like that when I get older, you know?
Yeah, he still looks cool after all them years. That thing was 40 years ago. 84, I think, is when the first one came out. And but it's had quite the resurgence. So anyway, all right. Well, thanks for the time today, Asim. It's been awesome to talk to you. And I hope you have a safe flight on your journeys to Saudi Arabia and great meetings. And we can't wait to see what 2025 has for you guys. But definitely, you're definitely on our map. That's for sure. I know a lot of our listeners also want us to talk about karate combat events that are taking place because you guys have provided a lot of highlights. A lot of big name fighters are coming over and things like that. So that's great.
I appreciate it, man. And you know, just to close out, like you said, we've had about a dozen events this year. Next year, we're hoping to push it and do a little more. We want to push it to 16, 18 events possibly in a year that we would really like to do. I mean, we're opening up our own version of the Apex here in Miami. So that way we can have events, you know, whenever we'd like. And that's the idea right now. So really trying to close it on that property. We want to have sort of like how there's the Performance Institute, how's the Apex for UFC. We want to have that for Karate Combat, maybe a performance dojo for Karate Combat where we can throw monthly fights. So that's a big goal of ours. And in 2025, look out for that.
Sounds great. And folks, don't forget on the 19th, it's KC51, Karate Combat 51. You can watch it on X at Karate Combat. You can watch it on YouTube, either one. And if you want to learn more about the website, just go to karate.com. And thank you again, Asim, for talking to us today.